Good morning. In my personal quiet times, I've been reading through the book of 1 Kings. And in my reading, I came upon some incredible stories of one of the greatest prophets in all of the Old Testament named Elijah. So today I'd like to tell you just two of those stories that are right beside each other, and they really lead into each other. Well, the first one starts in 1 Kings chapter 17. In fact, they're both there. And they start at the very beginning of Elijah's ministry. So what we found is this guy Elijah, God calls him, and he goes and he talks to an evil king named Ahab. And he tells Ahab that there's not going to be any rain until God says there's going to be rain, and that's going to be a while. Well, in fear for his life, God says, it's okay to get out of town. Go and hide yourself. So at this point, Elijah listens to God. First he listened to him and he obeyed, and he went and talked to the king and gave him some uncomfortable news. Then he listened to him and he left and went and hid himself where God told him to. It was down by this brook a little bit away from there. And then what God tells him is trust me, I'm going to take care of you. Here's how I'm going to take care of you in this instance. He says, I'm going to feed you with the ravens, and they're going to bring, and what they did is they brought him both bread and meat every morning and every evening. All right, that's kind of weird, but that's how God wanted to take care of him. So he has the water to drink in the brook, and the ravens every day, morning and evening, are bringing him both bread and meat. So after a period of time, Elijah's starting to say, this God that I've been following, he's kind of trustworthy. He kind of takes care of me. At a later point, the brook starts to dry up, and God says, it's okay, I have another plan. I want you to leave here. And he went to a far-off place in Sidon. And when he goes there, God says, you're going to meet this widow, and at once to Zarephath. And when he's there at Zarephath of Sidon, he meets this widow. And he says, you're going to meet her, and I've commanded her to supply you with food. So you just got to trust me. And he's like, God's been trustworthy. So he goes to this place. When he gets there, sure thing, he runs into, in a public place, this widow. And he says, hey, excuse me, could you give me something to drink? She's like, okay. So immediately she takes off to do it. But then he stops her while she's listening and doing what was asked of her. He also says, could you maybe give me some food too? Well, as she was going, she says to him, hey, mister, I don't have any bread. In fact, goes on to say, this is in verse 12, I am gathering, check this out, a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son that we may eat it and die. This is her last meal. That's all the flour she has left, all the oil she has left to make one last thing of bread. They're going to eat it, and then they're going to die. And yet, during this whole time, she's willing to listen to what Elijah's asking of her, to serve somebody she doesn't know and to take care of them. Elijah says to her, don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said. But first, here's what I'm going to ask you to trust me. Make me some bread first. Why does Elijah trust that God will take care of her? Because God has taken care of him. He trusted God and he obeyed with the hard things that he was asked to do, and now he's asking her to trust. And now we find, as we go a little further into the story, verse 14, the Lord God of Israel has said, the jar of flour will not be used up and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord gives rain on the land. So she went away and did as Elijah had told her. She trusted, and they didn't run out of food. None of the three of them. God fed them all, because she was willing to trust. My question for you is, what's God called you to do? We've been in a series in church on Nehemiah. It's been challenging us a little bit to find a passion that God has for our lives. And as we're looking for that passion, and then we're asked to step into that and to do something, to make a plan, to do something about it, do you trust God with that? Are you willing to move towards that? Has he asked you to do something that's a little bit difficult? Are you willing to trust him? Here's what I'll tell you. Were you willing to trust him in the past? Was he faithful? Has God ever been unfaithful to you? If God was faithful in the past, can't we expect that he will be faithful in the future with doing the things that he's asked us to do? My challenge today is that we listen to God and we faithfully obey, and just see the miracles that he might want to do in our lives and how he wants to use us to do miracles for his kingdom.